What's going on, ladies, gents, and kids of all ages? It is Eric coming back at you once again from the Nerd Cave, and I'm super excited for today's video. We're back for another deck tech. You guys know them, you love them. We have a very exciting deck coming at you today. It is probably the most excited I've been about an off-meta deck in a while. As some of you know, the people who tune in for the gameplay videos, it's a small portion of the audience. We did a gameplay video of the URSULA'S Return Deep Trouble Illumineer quest. We played on normal, and one of the decks that is included in that is Ruby Amber, which I've always thought is an interesting ink combination. Kind of give me some ideas how to play into Ruby Amber and maybe build the deck to make it even better to take on the extreme difficulty later on, which we're excited to do as well. That'll probably be coming as a Patreon exclusive video, since people don't really seem to care about those gameplay videos on YouTube anyway, at least not from my channel. I had seen a deck list previously that did pretty good in one of the Lorcana challenges that was running a Jim Hawkins just in time RLS Legacy line where you can get Jim Hawkins and RLS Legacy down on turn 3. That was really interesting and something worth messing around with. I kind of incorporated that into this deck and then kind of tweaked the deck list that you start with the URSULA'S Return deck. But we do also have our giveaway coming in today's video, so if you entered into that giveaway, definitely stick around for that. We're going to be giving away a booster box of Inklands, so pretty exciting big giveaway. And as always, thank you to the Patreon members who make the giveaways on the channel possible. If you want to help support the channel, there's $5 and $10 tiers. We are an inexpensive Patreon, and everything, 100% of the proceeds from that do go directly back to giveaways on the channel. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and talk about Ruby Amber locations. So the first card I'm running in the deck is going to be a 4 of Mulan, Injured Soldier. Enters play with 2 damage on her. She's a 2/3 for 1. She is a fantastic shift line for the other Mulan, and she is a great target for some of our healing cards that are going to help us with our draw in this deck, but we'll talk about those more later. So her coming in with 2 damage shouldn't typically matter. It's worth noting this deck did go 6-0 undefeated at my league. There was a situation where I had got Mulan down and my opponent was thinking they didn't have a Sisu to take advantage of their Flynn. They were on Ruby Amethyst, and so they went ahead and quested in with the Flynn, thinking I was going to attack it with the Mulan. They were at least going to go ahead and get a trade, get one of my characters off the board, prevent me from doing some card draw. What they didn't account for is Rapunzel is not the only healer I'm playing, but we're going to talk about that more a little later on. The second 1-drop in the deck, and really the only other 1-drop in the deck, is going to be the Queen, Regal Monarch. Don't question her, don't doubt her, and above all, don't disobey her. 2/2 for 1, and just here to be a shift line. And the first of 3 locations I'm running in this deck, this is a 3 of for this one. This is the Underworld. 2 cost, 6 willpower, 2 to move in, 1 passive lore per turn. Whenever a character quests will here, you may pay 3 to return a character from your discard pile to your hand. Not super relevant in the early game where you're not going to want to be using that much ink to do that, but as this deck kind of peters out on cards going into turn 6, 7, 8, being able to return characters from your discard to your hand is hugely important. It almost works like drawing an extra card every turn. Then our other heal target, a staple of the Mufasa list. This is not a Mufasa list, I do think that's worth noting. Staple of the Mufasa list with Rapunzel. Still great with Rapunzel and other lists. Mother Gothel, 3/4 for 1. Costs 2 to get down, so fantastic stat line. She does come into play with 3 damage on her, but a character that can attack for 3, coming down for 2 is still great. She has a favorable trade into Smee and Snake if you don't have her, if you're not using her as a healing target. If you do heal her first, she has an even more favorable trade into those characters where she is actually going to be alive still. Then this is kind of one of the dark horse cards on the deck. Something I'm not seeing a ton of people play is Uninkable, and I think that may be affecting it for some people, but it is Gaston, 2/4 stat line. I'm playing him even though he's uninkable over Doc for 2 reasons. Doc is going to be a little more aggressive on the quest, but he has 3 defense, which makes him a little more vulnerable to damage spells, particularly Smash, which has been seeing some play, and stuff like Sapphire Steel. I did find that he was pretty difficult for my opponents to out in most instances. I did play Ruby Amethyst one of the rounds. I played against Steel the other 2 rounds. 1 round Steel Song, 1 round Steel Amethyst. But Gaston was pretty difficult for them to deal with. And you pay 2 less for your next character, so you can get Gaston down on 3. You can go ahead and tap him on turn 4, get that 4th ink out, and then you're playing a 6-drop on turn 4. And the 6 drops in this deck are great, but again, we'll talk more about those later. Obviously, it's not super heavy on 6 drops, but we do have a high end curve. This isn't super mid-rangey. The mid-range is doing what it needs to do and then getting up to those higher cost cards as soon as possible. We do have Juliet and Madrigal, so this is kind of the surprise. It's not, you don't have to wait till turn 4 for Rapunzel. She is kind of a bad Rapunzel. She's a 1-4 for 3, so decent stat line again to insta-steal. Again, she's difficult for them to deal with the 4 defense. And when you play this character, you may remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. If you remove damage this way, you draw cards. You only get to draw 1 card off of her no matter what, but you do potentially get 2 damage off and heal your Mulan. So this is what I did into that Flynn. I went ahead and played Juliet on turn 3, healed my Mulan, then had a favorable trade into Flynn, and my Mulan stayed alive. And this is a 1-of. We do have 1 Tiana's Palace, 3 cost location, 2 to move in, 8 willpower. Characters can't be challengeable here. Fantastic ability. Is almost like giving them evasive, but kind of invasive to the nth degree, because even evasive characters wouldn't be able to challenge them. This is going to give you 1 passive lore per turn, and the 8 willpower is a pretty solid threshold in my opinion. Then one of the main cards this deck is built around. We do have 4 just in time, 3 cost, uninkable. You may play a character with cost 5 or less for free. This is going to be fantastic for, as I mentioned, getting out Jim Hawkins, getting out anything that costs more than 3, any of those 4 drops. Even using this to play, if you go turn to Gothel, sometimes people will let her sit there thinking you're not going to be on that Rapunzel until turn 4. If it's more relevant, you can just in time out a Rapunzel turn 3 and go ahead and heal that right then and there, get the 3 cards drawn. It's super good swing into something like Bucky, which is going to have a hard time removing a lot of your characters to begin with. But just in time, fantastic, and I've got some great targets for it. We do play Maui in this deck, but we'll see more of those targets as we go. Potential target, not something you're typically going to want to be playing with it. We do have Super Goof. Getting him out on turn 3 could be good in some instances. He's a 2-4 rush, quest for 1, but typically what you're going to be doing with him is his ability, and that's whenever this character challenges another character, you're going to gain 2 lore. It doesn't have to challenge and defeat them, just has to challenge into something. So if you're able to get a couple challenges in with this character, you can get some pretty solid passive lore off of him without questing. Even if you can sneak that 1 out, he can almost work like a goat to close out a game. Then part of the heart blood of this deck is going to be Rapunzel, gifted with healing. You know where you love her. 1-5 4-4. She's been seeing a little less play because she's not super favorable into Brawl and things like that. However, when you're looking into those steel matchups, into Sapphire Steel or into Emerald Steel, which are hugely prevalent in the meta right now, she's great against both of those decks. They have a very hard time removing her, and she does quest for 2. She is potentially going to draw you a bunch of cards, particularly with a deck like this. So gotta love Rapunzel, and she's going to be able to heal some of your higher willpower characters. Obviously we have things like Super Goof. You get some extra challenges out of him potentially, so really kind of synergistic with this deck. She's great with Maui. And then we do have 4 RLS Legacies. This is one of the only instances where I would ever recommend playing for this card, but being able to get just in time Jim Hawkins RLS Legacy on turn 3 consistently is huge. It's not going to happen every single time. Obviously it is a 3-card combo. You have to have really specific things to be able to ink to even get these cards down, but I was able to play it multiple times across 6 games, whether it was on turn 3 or not. It wasn't always on turn 3. I had one game where we were going kind of into the later game. It was pretty back and forth, and I was sitting on an RLS Legacy and a just in time in my hand. I was getting about ready to just hard cast the RLS Legacy. I drew Jim Hawkins, so couldn't ask for much more out of that. But RLS Legacy is a great location. It's not quite as good as the Queen's Castle, but that 8 willpower over 7 again is just like a threshold that people a lot of times have a tough time with, especially if you're able to control the board semi-effectively in the earlier game. And part of how you're going to be able to do that, again with just in time, you can go ahead and get this guy down on 3 if it's going to be relevant. But we do have Maui, 5 cost, 6-5, quest for nothing. He's not a quester because he is reckless all the time and he has rush, so he's going to be taking those attacks whether you like it or not. Keep in mind, if your opponent is trying to exert characters to force you to challenge into them and they have locations in play, you can challenge those locations instead. So that's very important to be taken advantage of with your reckless characters when it is relevant. I actually had an opponent in the Stitch challenge try to give one of my characters reckless. Well, he had a location on the board thinking I'd have to take a negative trade into one of his characters. I just attacked his location instead. And next up we do have 2 Kitas, 3-5 for 5 Quest for 2, shifts for 3. Obviously, we're not playing the shift line in this deck, so the shift on her isn't super relevant. But when she comes into play, she's going to give all characters -3. That does include your characters, but she's not here to make it so you can take out your opponent's characters. She's here if you have a board stabilized already and your opponent has attackers that are going to be able to kill your characters. Playing Kita and keeping those characters -3 until the start of your next turn is hugely important because it can prevent your opponent from taking trades into you. Even Maui can go down to something like 3, so if you have characters with 4 or 5 willpower on the board, you're preventing Maui from killing your characters even. Then another way to manipulate attack and defense, we are playing the Queen, Commanding Presence. 5 cost, 4/3. 4/3 stat line's great because she's going to be outside of Medusa, and she's going to definitely help you get some of those favorable trades. You can shift her because we are playing the shift line in this deck. Whenever this character quests, chosen opposing character gets -4 this turn, and chosen character gets +4 this turn. Interesting tip with her, if you're ever building Steel Song, that +4 isn't specific to one of your characters. I know you automatically think like -4 to an opposing character, +4 to one of your characters. No, it's +4 to any character. So you could give +4 to an opposing character and then play World's Greatest Criminal Mind and actually kill something straight up if it has pushed it to 5 or greater, which is super interesting with this card. But typically in this deck she's not going to be doing that. I'm not running that combo, but she is going to be going ahead and getting some cheeky quests in, and she's going to be great for getting rid of your opponent's characters with some of your smaller characters in this deck. Then the man of the hour, we do have 4 Jim Hawkins. 5 cost, 4/4, quest for 2. Again, great stat line. He's going to be outside of Brawl and Medusa and all that kind of stuff. He is a little bit easier to take out on the back end, so Steel is sometimes going to have a little bit easier time with him. But when you play this character, you may play a 4 cost location for free, so that's where you're going to play him with Just in Time for 3, get him down, play RLS Legacy for free, and then whenever you play a location, this character can move there for free, so you can move him into it for free, and then every other character you get out costs 1 to move in the Legacy, and Legacy is going to give them evasive, so you can get a pretty evasive field going. That is going to be your primary answer to Diablo with this deck as well. This deck is like the only red deck I've ever played that runs no removal actions. We do have 2 card soldiers. This is something I had seen on that Just in Time deck list. It is honestly pretty good. A lot of times it's going to be ink in your inkwell, but if you need a 5 cost for your Just in Time, a 5/5 stat line that quests for 2 is going to be really hard for both sides of the coin to take out. Ruby again is not going to be able to kill it with Medusa, and Steel is going to have a hard time dealing with that 5 stat line unless they're on a Long Came Zeus or something like that, which they may be, but they're going to need a lot of Long Came Zeus against this deck because a lot of your characters are up there. And we do have 2 Medusa. So this is one of our removal cards, even though it isn't a removal action. When you play this character, you can banish an opposing character with 3 or less attacks. Super helpful to me when I was playing in that tournament. When she was able to come down and out something like Beast, I did play against the big bodyguard support Mickey Mouse, which is surprisingly good, and I was able to out him with a Medusa. I was able to outstitch Rockstar with a Medusa, so Medusa again super good. 4/4, 4/6, quest for 1. A lot of people are trying to play around this card right now, but you are typically going to be able to get the value out of at least 2 Medusas. And like I mentioned before, we are on that Gaston stat line, or we are on that Gaston play line. So if we are getting Gaston out on turn 3, we can potentially play Medusa on turn 4, which I did do one game, and it was hugely helpful. Then we do have 2 Mickey Mouse. Friendly face, 1/6, so dies to Brawl, which is kind of a bummer. In the Ruby matchup, you may be looking more at inking this, but in other matchups where this 6 stat line, the 6 stat line is really, really good against Steel. It is going to keep it outside of a Long Came Zeus, and whenever this character quests, so it's questing, and questing for 3 at that, you're going to pay 3 less for the next character you play this turn, which is crazy. So if you go turn 3 Gaston, turn 4 Mickey Mouse, because again you're able to make them cost 2 less with Gaston, and then your Gaston and Mickey Mouse survive until the next turn, you're able to play a cost 5 character for free, or you're able to go something like cost 2 Mother Gothel, It comes in with 3 damage on it, and then use Mickey Mouse to make your Rapunzel cost 3 less, and you're able to play that for 1, so you're effectively paying 1 ink to draw 3 cards and establish 2 characters on the board, still having 4 ink open. And I can't stress this enough, this is going into your turn 5, so you got 4 ink open, you've got 2 huge characters out, you've got the characters you played already, so Mickey Mouse, fantastic option. Something that doesn't get enough love. It is really specific to this deck in my opinion though, that it is really the best. Then we do have 2 Lady Tremaine, Imperious Queen, 3/4 for 6, quests for 2. I do like her a little more than Medusa because she is going to quest for 2, whereas Medusa is only going to get you that quest for 1. But you know her ability. When you play this character, each opponent chooses and banishes one of their characters, so it is going to avoid things like Ward. It is going to kill characters with huge stat lines that Medusa can't get at. It's going to take out Tamatoas when he's the only dude on the board. So Lady Tremaine, still a card that I love, hence why I have an enchanted. I have very few enchanteds, but I have an enchanted Tremaine. And the last card in the deck, you may have guessed this when we were talking about the Mulan previously, but we are on 3 Mulan Elite Archer, 6 cost, 2/6, shift for 5. When you play this character, if you use shift to play her, she gets +3 this turn. During your turn, whenever this character deals damage to another character in a challenge, deal the same amount of damage to up to 2 other chosen characters. Absolutely gross ability. I was able to wipe a board 2 times during the tournament with this. Once into the Amethyst Steel matchup, which was particularly gross because if I recall correctly, he had like Rabbit, Fox, and something else on the board. He had 3 characters out, and I was able to attack into his Rabbit, so not even die with this. I was at 4 damage at that point because I shifted onto an already damaged small Mulan, but I was able to keep her alive and take out all of his characters, which was absolutely crazy. And then same thing in the Steel Song matchup. He had quested in with like Piglet or something, and then he also had an Ariel out that he had just sung with and another character, and I was again able to shift and go ahead and just blast him away with Mulan. So Mulan, fantastic card. When she gets that shift functionality, it is crazy. Having her in a deck with Rapunzel is huge because you can go ahead and heal her. Even attacking for 2 and splitting that damage across 3 characters is great. So even when she's not getting that attack for 5, she's still really, really good. Worth noting again, I know I sound like a broken record, but with Gaston, you can potentially go ahead and play her on turn 4 hard cast if you don't have the shift line. If you do have the shift line, you're playing her on turn 4 for 3 potentially, and then still keeping 1 ink open to play something else if that's relevant, or you can just go ahead and quest in with your Gaston, maybe play something else, because I think she really is at her best when she's shifted. But that is the extent of the Amber Ruby locations deck. Calling it a locations deck is maybe a little crazy. It only runs 8 locations, but the locations is really where you want to go with it. If you are able to, you definitely want to try to get one of them in your starting hand. With 8 in here, it is surprisingly easy if you are mulligan aggressively for the combo, honestly, into the Bucky matchup, because discard can be rough for you. Seems like the best potential option is to go like ink pass, ink just in time, Jim Hawkins, RLS Legacy, and they have a super hard time dealing with it. So you don't want to be committing too many cards to the board if you don't have to. Committing characters that are damaged early when they're playing steel can be rough because they may just end up removing them anyway, and then you're losing cards and having to discard other cards. So that's definitely something to always be thinking about in that Bucky matchup. But I think this deck is actually pretty favorably set up to play into the current meta. Playing it correctly into Bucky I think is super important, but it's got a really good matchup into Ruby Amethyst. It's got a super good matchup into Amethyst Steel. The Sapphire Steel matchup is pretty solid. You can generally lure them out before they're able to really get established. Same thing with Ruby Sapphire. So I think it's definitely a deck to be on the lookout for. Obviously we're going into a new set soon, but what do you think of this deck? Is this something you want to try out before Shimmering Skies come out? Are you excited for the new set coming out? Are you excited for that booster box giveaway? If you are, then stick around because it's happening right now. All right, we got our friendly wheel pulled up. I'm very excited to be doing another booster box giveaway. We had less entries this time, only 57. We had over 200 in our last booster box giveaway. Chalk that up to some of the videos I've been putting out on the channel, maybe not my most popular content. So huge shout out to the people who support every video. We had a bunch of people with multiple entries, despite not having all deck tech videos in the meantime. So thank you so much for that. And thanks to the Patreons who help support these giveaways. But it looks like our winner is going to be All hail Rich 1501. Big congratulations to you. Big congratulations to that booster box winner. I will have that out into the mail very soon. Go ahead and drop a comment below to claim it. Let me know that you saw this video and you're excited to get your booster box. Drop a line down there so I can get you over my email and we can get into contact and I can get that booster box across to you. But as always, thank you so much for sticking around the end. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And when you see Ketchup and Mustard decks off in the distance featuring Jim Hawkins, it is not a mirage. You guys have a great day.